The Toronto Raptors seeding is now set for the NBA play-in game as well as the NBA playoffs. So we're going to be facing the Chicago Bulls in the first round of the play-in. So we'll discuss that sort of setup, including a personnel decision that I think was a big mistake for the Toronto Raptors to close out this year. Pascal Siakam speaking out on his relationship with Kawhi Leonard, amongst other things, and an update to Nick Nurse's future with the Toronto Raptors. So lots of stuff to break down. Without further ado, let's jump to the first topic of discussion. First thing we're taking a look at is the Raptors front office making a major mistake. Now, I discussed this a little bit on last night's live stream. It's been a huge topic around Raptors land. It's what the heck were the Toronto Raptors going to do with Jeff Doughton, as they kind of handcuffed themselves, mid-March this year when they acquired Will Barton to fill that final roster spot. Because for people that aren't familiar, we had a guy running our sort of backup position to close out the season, especially, in the last couple months. Jeff Doughton has proven to be a very high caliber backup point guard for this Raptors team, at least this season. He's outperformed Delano Banton, he's outperformed Malachi Flynn, and he has certainly outperformed Will Barton since he's joined the Toronto Raptors. So with the acquisition of Will Barton, the Raptors were in a tough position because their two-way guy, Jeff Doughton, you couldn't just easily convert his contract to a full-time deal, and he's still on his two-way, which means he's ineligible to play any more games for the rest of this year. We found that out earlier this week, and the Raptors have come to a decision. The Grizzlies just signed one of their two-way guys today, but the Raptors came out yesterday, basically said that they will not convert Jeff Doughton's two-way contract for the remainder of the regular season, play-in tournament, and playoffs. It's an odd move considering how Jeff Doughton Jr. has helped the team down the stretch. It's coming from Michael Grange, and it's a move that I think is foolish. Now, I went on a little bit of a tirade last night on the live stream talking about the poor decisions and stuff because the Raptors went all out on this season. They're making a push, and technically they're still making a push, right? They're still trying to get into the play-in, get into the playoffs, get that playoff experience for guys like Scotty Barnes, and I'm rooting like heck for the Raptors to beat the Chicago Bulls and beat either the Miami Heat or Atlanta Hawks in this play-in tournament so we can actually get some playoff action. But the Raptors seem to have one foot in, one foot out on this season, just like their head coach right now, and just like the personnel out there on the court, given how they seem to be playing. Lack of energy, lack of motivation, and I think, forget about all the stuff about Jeff Doughton being our best option as a backup point guard that could give us the best possible opportunity to win some of these games down the stretch and potentially win a couple games in the playoffs. The fact that the roster acquired Jakob Poeltl at the trade deadline. They said, we believe in this team, right? We acquired Will Barton, who in theory was a good pickup, right? Player-wise, a shooter that can get buckets, a veteran, all that sort of stuff, right? They say all these things. And then right at the close, right at the end, they decide not to convert Jeff Doughton Jr.'s contract. And we were winning some games ahead of this decision. I imagine this was probably talked about in the locker room, in the front office and stuff this week. And before these two games we had against the Boston Celtics, we were looking motivated. We were looking ready to go. And they just decide not to do this. And forget, again, on the court stuff. The fact that they didn't want to close out, the push for the play-in, the push for the playoffs this season. Sure, you can talk about Nick Nurse losing the locker room. We'll talk about that later in the video. We can talk about anything. But the fact that they didn't make this decision, I just think it's a huge mistake because it shows that the front office probably isn't fully committed or doesn't believe in this team to really make a push. And it's showing out here to close out the season. I think it's a big mistake. Jeff Doughton Jr. also had some comments on the topic, basically saying that he's proud of the way he finished the season and communication with the team yesterday was positive. He said he's going to be the best cheerleader he can be for however long the season lasts. So while Jeff Doughton Jr. is not going to be a disgruntlement in the locker room or anything like that, the fact that he didn't make that push, a guy that earned a spot on this roster, right, earned his position, didn't get that opportunity to get his contract converted, I don't know. I think it could be having a factor to play in the lack of energy, the lack of, gumption we have out there playing out there on the court. So I think, obviously, I've made my take throughout this week about Jeff Doughton he needed to be picked up and we didn't do it, basketball-wise, but I also think it's indicative of where the Toronto Raptors are as a franchise and all that sort of stuff. So hopefully we can win the play-in, and that sort of leads us into our next topic. The Toronto Raptors playoff seeding has been set as we're officially going to be playing the Chicago Bulls in the play-in, and it's the first game on Wednesday night, and then we play the loser of the Miami Heat and Atlanta Hawks. Lundberg sort of gives a good breakdown of it. We finished 9th seed in the Eastern Conference, so we must survive 2 must-win games in order to make the playoffs. They'll host Chicago on Wednesday. The winner plays Miami and Atlanta on Friday. The winner of that game will face the Milwaukee Bucks in round 1. So, I know a lot of people are calling for a tank and all that sort of stuff because we get back in the lottery and there's still a 2 or 4% chance of landing Victor Wembanyama if we are in that lottery. But I'm still rooting like heck for the Toronto Raptors to make this play-in or win this play-in, beat a few of these teams, and figure out whatever the heck has been going on with this team. Because, again, we look disengaged, we look disheartened. Like, it's just a bad look for this Raptors team. And I don't think it's the right way to close out the season to drop a couple duds like we did against the Boston Celtics the last 2 nights. So, the Milwaukee Bucks are certainly a tough foe in the first round, but last 10 years, the Raptors have played the Milwaukee Bucks a couple times in the playoffs, are undefeated. Maybe Nick Nurse can build a wall against Giannis once again, and we can have a fun play-in upset, if we end up facing the Bucks. But I don't know, it's not looking good, right? We had a Raptors therapy session last night, and hopefully the Raptors listen to it and they're bouncing back for the next game. But let me know what you guys think, how you think the Toronto Raptors will do in this play-in tournament playoff situation. Next thing we're taking a look at is a report on Nick Nurse's future with the Toronto Raptors. Now, there's been a lot of talk, a lot of discussion about Nick Nurse's future and all that sort of stuff. Now, Jake Fisher has made some comments as well regarding the whole Nick Nurse saga that's been going on. Basically saying that last campaign, though he's proven quite trying and arduous for the Raptors, riddled with trade speculation and mounting uncertainty, Fred OG and Gary Trent Jr., right? As those names have featured prominently in league-wide discussions ahead of the trade deadline, the first rumbling surfaced regarding Nick Nurse's own unknown future ahead of the 2023-2024 season in his final year with the coaches ahead of his final year as head coach of the Toronto Raptors, right? That contract that he signed. Nurse's comments certainly suggest he could depart the franchise on his own volition, while the Raptors officials, sources tell Yahoo Sports, have been openly evaluating Nick Nurse's current fit at the position after leading the Toronto Raptors to its only championship in 2019. So we knew all the comments Nick Nurse made. We knew all the rumors about Ime Udoka coming in. We knew everything about that. But a lot of the discourse around the Nick Nurse situation has been, hey, he might just want to leave. He might be done with the organization. 10 years has been a long time, right? We have the Celtics broadcasters essentially saying that, Nick Nurse, the coaches have tuned out Nick Nurse at this point, and they're saying, oh yeah, it's over, right? It's a lot of talk about this, that, and whatever, and there's been a lot of talk about Nick Nurse potentially wanting to leave, and now Jake Fisher's essentially saying that people in the front office of the Raptors organization, even though Nick Nurse is well regarded across the league, he's done a tremendous job, he's the best resume of any coach we've had for the Raptors, team history, the front office probably sees it might be time to part ways with him as well. So we'll see what happens on that front. All the Rockets rumors, I'm sure there'll be more reports coming out and more things to break down. So we'll definitely keep you up to date on everything regarding the Nick Nurse drama. But the final thing we're discussing is Pascal Siakam speaking out on Kawhi Leonard leaving, amongst other things. He had a couple interesting comments on Draymond Green's podcast. He called Joel Embiid the MVP of the league this season, which is funny given their rivaled past, even though they're both from Cameroon. But Siakam has tripped him up, he's injured him, and all that sort of stuff. So there's that. Interesting, Pascal making those comments. But regarding the Kawhi Leonard topic, regarding that situation, basically he said, when he's asked how he felt about Kawhi Leonard leaving, I think it's mixed. At the end of the day, if there's one person that I can see do it, it's Kawhi. The way he conducts his business. That's the way he is. All the things he does always is in a particular way. For me, thinking that I don't think he can leave, but at the same time, it's Kawhi. He's going to do what he wants to do, and much power to him because that's who he is as a person. Obviously, you're hurt because you look at your team, say, yo, we can really do this. I'm evolving, Fred is evolving, everyone's growing on their own, and we think we can really build something special. And Kawhi leaves, so it was sad, like it hurt. But at the same time, I can only see Kawhi do that. I'm not totally surprised by it. So, interesting comments there by Pascal Siakam saying he was hurt, which makes sense, given the fact that season, Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam are starting to come into their own. And while there's a lot of criticism for both those players right now, Siakam has established himself into an all-NBA caliber player, and Fred VanVleet did become an all-star. So, There's all those types of things. Kawhi didn't see a future with the team, but that's sort of the way he is, and it's just his whole personality. We knew it when he came in, right? We saw it throughout the season. And while I was sure he was going to stay after we won the championship, in hindsight, you see why he left. But that's essentially what Pascal is saying. But folks, you guys are the best to make this far. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. And you guys are the best. I'm signing out. Cheers.